leadership roles and rode the waves of both challenges and opportunity. While their learnings never stopped, they continue to be part of some of these organizations. Growing up in families where parents, uncles, aunts, siblings, and cousins were closely knit, they have imbibed the value of relationship, of giving and receiving with grace. The treasure they have amassed over the years is the extended network of true friends built from their student days as well as from their business and social circle. They are believers in the wealth of knowledge and wisdom handed down from the ages, and they have concisely exposed themselves to the content from renowned teachers and source documents toward finding answers and approaches to lead a meaningful life. While they are practitioners, they continue to be students and seekers of the Indic way, striving to reach potential, to continuously perform and achieve, to do their best in any situation and face lives up and down with equanimity, to care for well-being of people and nurture relationship of value by reducing negatives, building, leveraging positivities, and thereby engage with life with energy, enthusiasm, fulfillment, and happiness. The various sessions of Indic Way highlight their learnings and practices, aspects that they have found to be of value for themselves in getting ready for life. So with this, now I request Mr. JK and Ramraj to take over the session.
Thank you, Saurav. Good evening. Well, you might have all been surprised that the introduction this time was a little different from what traditionally has been covered. And this is in line with, if some of you were part of the previous session on the power to transform, we had asked people to introduce themselves with no reference to education and the companies they worked in and different professional achievements. And we said, hey, we'll try that for ourselves. So Saurav had a pretty tough time really going through that particular thing, but in a nutshell, we wanted to more present to all of you, both Ram and myself, just as people. Delighted that you're all here. Since it's not a physical meeting, we may not be able to immediately take a check on how many of you are new or first timers to the Power Series. But always we find that there are a few who are first time to the Indic way. So very briefly, we've always found that our preparedness and what we need to understand, we scramble for it when there is a crisis. Look at what we're doing now. Suddenly health has become important, diet has become important, cleanliness has become important, because COVID is around us and all aspects which we might have ignored, whether it was health, it was exercise, it was diet, it's now kashayams, it's different things. Suddenly these have come to the forefront. Same is true with life. Very few of us are prepared. And in the Indic way, we have tapped into the wealth of knowledge and wisdom that resides and belongs to the ages in our own ancient scriptures and other literature. And from the exposure that we have had, we have culled out aspects that are important. And that is what we present in the Indic way. And everything is aimed at performance, at making sure that we are in a position to achieve, to be successful, and yet joyous, happy. And this combination, how we go after it, is what we have covered in the different sessions of Power Series. Ram, you may have some intro remarks.
Yeah, good evening and welcome again. One of the things that we keep emphasizing is this is about self-development. This is about ourselves. How are we prepared to face life? That is why readiness for life. This is not for the team. This is for us to set an example. And we can just take stock of how we are coping in this crisis. And so an assessment of ourselves, what could we have done differently to prepare for this kind of challenge or any kind of challenge? And so first time we spoke about the power of I. How do we get to full potential? Are we at full potential? Why aren't we at full potential? And then how do we change and be better prepared? So these were the two sessions we've had, and we will now move on to this session. And JK, over to you.
Yeah. Sorry. Thanks, Ram. So like Ram said, we have already covered session 1 and 2, the power of I and the power to transform. We are into the third session, which is the power of learning. And as we go on in this series, these are the other sessions that we will cover. Each one you will find has some aspect which are important to us. And in all these, like Ram said, this is a journey that you need to perform alone. This is a journey which you have to perform by going internal. So to understand each one of this, and we continuously refer to the Indic muscles, and to us it is very similar to building physical muscles for performance in life, that we build these Indic muscles, and these muscles will help us to perform the journey of life with that objective very clear. It is for success, joy, reaching our potential. But the journey has to be performed by each one of us individually, and a lot of things would require us to go internal, and by looking at ourselves and by receiving all the inputs that
Saurav, I think JK's gone on mute.
Sir, I think he had some issue with his internet. I'll just call him and I'll just take. Really sorry for the inconvenience.
He's back. He's back. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
let's get into today's session.
So
the power
screen,
of learning.
You'll have to share the screen again.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay now?
Yeah, just come.
Yeah. Let's first look at the ABCDs that we know. Let's take this question. In a right angle triangle, one of the angles is 54 degrees. What is the value of the other angle? And I'm going to provide you some options. A, 90 degrees, B 36, C 46, D none of the above. Tick the correct answer. Some of you may attempt it in the chat window just for Saurav or somebody to see.
Yep, answers are coming.
Okay, I see quite a few of you have 36 degrees as the answer. So I want to check, is there anybody else in this group who thinks that one of the other options is the correct answer? And if so, you can raise your hand and Saurav, they can be allowed to speak.
Two of them have said 90.
Okay, two of you have said 90. Anybody else who thinks other than either 36 or 90 that there is some other option? Okay, we'll assume therefore we are in agreement. The two who have said 90, we will talk about this subsequently after we finish the first four screens. But majority of people are agreed that the correct answer is 36. Let's move to the next question. A box contains 3 red socks, 4 white socks, and 5 blue socks. With your eyes closed, what is the minimum number of socks that you need to pick to ensure that you have at least one pair of the same color? The options are A, 6, B, 2, C, 3, 4, none of the above. Tick the correct answer. You may attempt to write this in the chat window, please.
Same color.
Okay, answers are coming in the chat window, but what I find that this time not everybody is in agreement like in the earlier one where everybody was in agreement that it was 36. Some have said 2, some have said 3, some have said 6, some have said none of the above. So maybe this particular question needed a little more application of mind than the earlier question, even though this covers ABCDs that we know. So would anyone who said none of the above, would you please raise your hand, and Saurav, if you can unmute them, we would like to know what is it that prompted you to say none of the above. Yes, Vinod. Yeah, please.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, I'm Vinod Kumar.
Yeah.
Red 3, so we'll have a 1 pair. 4 white, we have a 2 pair, and 5 blue 5, so we have a 2 pair. So this one 2, then 2 4, and red 1 pair. So totally comes to like 5 pair. It's not here in the list. So I choose none of the above.
No, I think maybe your interpretation of the question is a little different. The question is, let's say all these are mixed up.
Okay.
With your eyes closed, what is the minimum number of socks you should pick up so that you get at least one pair which is of the same color? Anybody else who did none of the above or any of the
Meera
other
Nair.
answers?
Saurav, Meera Nair wants to answer.
Yes, please. Meera.
Yeah, since there are 3 different colors, if I were to pick only 3, it could be all 3 different colors. So if I pick 4 socks, that is 2 pairs, 4 numbers of socks. Okay, so then I'll definitely have 1 pair which is of the same color.
Absolutely right, Meera. Absolutely right. That is the logic. That is the logic. Therefore, with your eyes closed, if you pick up, and if the first 3 belong to different colors, with the 4th pick, you're guaranteed that you will have at least 1 pair which has the same color. So this logic is valid when there are 5 colors and there are 6 colors and stuff like that. And it is not dependent on the number of socks. So very good answer. But some of you had different interpretations and therefore you came up with some other answers. And we're going to cover that aspect too after we finish the first 2. So just to summarize so far, the first question, almost everyone was agreed that the answer was 36. A couple of people said the answer is 90 degrees, and we'll come to that again subsequently in the final discussion. In this one, there was a little bit more of logic which needed to get applied, and therefore we had multiple people interpreting and coming up with different answers. Now let's move to the third question. Yeah. Your 21-year-old daughter announces to you that she is planning to get married to a senior from college belonging to another religion. You would respect her decision and allow her to go with her choice, scream at her, lock her up and confiscate her mobile phone, counsel her and convince her to reevaluate her decision, have no clue on what to do. Pick the correct answer. Some of you may attempt and put choice A, B, C, D into the chat window, please. Very interesting, multiple answers. I'm finding every choice has been selected by someone or other. No, sorry. Ram?
So, speak about my views and allow her to take the decision. How do you decide? Some of you have said A, B, C, D. B, I didn't see that much. Scream at her and lock her up. I did see 2 of you who said scream at her and lock her up, which I thought was the most natural for a 21-year-old girl. That I thought was natural. How do you decide? Okay. None of the above is not allowed here. So yeah.
That is what we said, no clue on what to do.
Yeah. We'll go to the next and then come back, JK. And
Shall we use that twist which you said, Ram, right now, or you want to wait till we cover that? We'll put the twist and go to the next. I feel then.
Next.
We'll take the twist later on.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, it's not moving that quickly with my thing. I'll have to wait. Yep. In the current COVID-19 situation, your travel business has dried up and you have zero revenues and collections. You have not paid salary to your team for the last 3 months. With no imminent revival in sight, you would close shop and look for a corporate job, somehow borrow money from someone and keep things going, sell everything that you and your family have and save the business, have no clue on what to do. Tick the correct answer. You may enter A, B, C, or D in the chat window, please. Okay, again, we have many choices, many different answers. And before we take up the comment, I just want to step back to the previous one and I want to talk about the twist that Ram and I discussed. Let's see, it's not. I think my keyboard is not responding for some reason.
It's okay. We'll just keep it here and just talk.
No, with this itself, I will give you what a twist is. In the previous question, we said your 21-year-old daughter comes and announces that she wants to get married to her senior belonging to another religion, and what would you do? The twist which we want to now present, let us say your neighbor's 21-year-old daughter, wanted to do the same thing. Now, what is it that you would suggest to your neighbor amongst those four? Would your answer be the same or would your answer be different? We're really not looking for a response, but we're only saying when that situation concerns me, and if you really put yourself in that situation and you know that it is such a tricky situation, the way your mind works is different. But when it's somebody else, maybe it's a little easier to look at these and come up with another option. The same is here. Let us say this is you. Instead of this, if I twist it around and say, in this COVID-19 situation, your friend's travel business has dried up, what would you suggest to him? Your approach may be a little different. So in both question 3 and question 4, we have suddenly come to situations that are beyond ABCD. That the education that we had in school and college is not good enough to give you the right answers. In question 1 and 2, what we learned in school or college would have helped us to come up with what the right answer is. But in these two, that is of no use. And many have said, we have no clue on what to do. And there are multiple people with multiple views. And the views may change when I'm involved. And the view may be different when my neighbor or friend is involved. Ram, any comments before we move to?
So many of you have said we would answer this, we would do the same. Usually when it is like our last example in the last session, when neighbor's coconut fell on neighbor's car, we could give very rational, sober advice about take a picture, call the insurance company, all of that. If neighbor's coconut fell on our car, the amount of emotion that comes into it is something that here in a classroom kind of environment, we are applying, I think, theory and not really being realistic in the way we are looking at this. How many that your 21-year-old daughter comes and says, I'm getting married, when you are thinking she's going to go abroad and study and do all that? And everybody is saying it doesn't matter if it is neighbor's daughter or my daughter, I will handle it coolly, rationally, and no problem. So I'm just saying, I think it was Shakespeare who said in Hamlet, to thine own self be true, which means at least don't bullshit yourself. To thine own self be true. So when you're doing an own analysis of where you are and what you would do, be honest to yourself. You might present something here to say that we are all rational and sober, but to thine own self, when you do the analysis, for your own sake, be true, be honest. So that's the only input at this stage, JK. Back to you.
Thanks, Ram. So let's look at what is the right answer. In maths, only in maths and such, equivalent quantitative subjects, is there a right answer? And when I say that there is a right answer, the answer is known even when the question is framed. So in that right angle triangle, one of the angles 54 degrees, that the other angle is 36 is known by whoever set that question, and it was known even when the question is framed. It's the same for everyone. And all other answers are incorrect. Yes, I know some of you had 90 degrees and therefore the interpretation is one of the other angles is 90. But even in that situation, if you read the question carefully, since it starts with in a right angle triangle, the other angle cannot refer to itself. So if you really carefully look at the question, some who may have thought that it is 90 degrees may not have interpreted the question correctly. But if you interpret the question correctly and you arrive at saying it refers to the other angle has to be the one other than 54, and therefore that needs to be 36. So only in maths and such, answer is known at the time question is framed. Answer is the same for everyone, and all other answers are incorrect. Ram, anything here?
No.
Okay. Now let's move to, and this is the other important thing. The answer can be evaluated as soon as answered. The moment you said 36, I can give you tick saying 100 out of 100 or 2 out of 2 or 5 out of 5 or whatever. So the answer can be evaluated as soon as it's answered. Now let's look at what is the right answer in life. Answer is not known when the question is framed. The 21-year-old girl comes and says, this is what I'm going to do. Answer is not known. The question itself was not anticipated. And like, I don't know, many will know that all these questions that surface in life, they are what we refer to in school and college saying, hey, that question is out of the syllabus. It's not what I read and prepared for. It's come from some other textbook. It is out of the syllabus. So the answer is not known when the question is framed. Answer cannot be evaluated at the time of answering. Some of you said, allow her to go by her choice. Someone else said, no, let's counsel her. How do you know that is the correct answer? We said, tick the correct answer. Answer cannot be evaluated at the time of answering. Different answers for different people. And it was obvious, even from this small group, different people had different assessment of what needs to be done, what is the right thing to do, what is the correct way to handle this particular situation. So different answers for different people. We think it's the right answer, but your daughter who's there, she thinks it's an absolute wrong answer. So the answer is the same, but the person who's answering is thinking it's correct, the recipient is thinking it is wrong. All these plus some more, which are part of what it is in life. We want to present to you saying there is therefore no right answer or wrong answer at the time of decision or choice. Whether it's right or wrong will be known only after the event in course of time. Suppose you said, no, let's counsel her and let's tell her to think about it. And then if she goes with that, later she studies, like Ram said, studies well, studies further, gets settled. All of us are happy we took the right decision. But we lock her up and we say, no, confiscate your telephone. And she runs off with her boyfriend. And then you lose touch with her. And there is no contact. And there's all sorts of animosity. Suddenly we're thinking whether that particular answer was the right answer. So right or wrong will be known after the event. If we decide, let's close the business, and then travel business starts to boom in 12 months, you say, hey, we shouldn't have. We don't close the business, we put all the money into it, and 6 months down the line, everything is gone and travel business is nowhere near revival. Say, hey, no, yeah, we could have closed down and gone to a corporate job. So nothing, it will not be known, and will be known only after the event in the course of time. The answer is easier when it involves others, and it's tougher when it involves us. Ram?
So there is no absolute right or wrong, as JK has said. Yet you need to take a decision. And when you take that decision, you need to be in the right frame of mind. You need to have all your faculties available to be able to take that decision. Because unlike in maths, you get one wrong answer, you may get 10 marks less. You got 90 out of 100. Here, you might lose your daughter, you might lose your business, you might have hurt 100 employees. There are serious consequences to this whole thing. How and where do you learn? How to bring all your faculty when you are challenged like this? Out of syllabus questions are thrown at you. And it happens every day in some form or the other. The degree of difficulty is different, that's all. But it is usually something out of syllabus. COVID, it's coming now. What am I supposed to do? Work from home, etc. So we've all gone through that. So how do we prepare? What do we do? How do we bring our faculties at the time of making decision? How can we be better prepared for such questions that are thrown at us? JK?
So this is valid in so many situations. I know this right or wrong answer. I'm a cricket enthusiast, and we have done a lot of events, even in TiE and other things, to bring people together. And therefore, when you're captain of the team and you win the toss, do you elect to bat or do you elect to field? Well, you might have looked at the pitch, you would have looked at different conditions, blah, blah, my strength of our team, strength of their team, they have bowlers, we have batsmen, all sorts of permutation combinations, and you decide to bat. You decide to bat and you're bundled out for less than 100 runs. The pitch was not supposed to take spin, but it took spin even from the 5th over. Or you decide to field and they hammer you for some 300 runs and there is no way you can chase or you can do something. So when you take that decision, right or wrong will be known, you decided to bat, and if you win the match, everybody will say, great decision, yeah, JK, you took the right decision when you decided to bat. No right or wrong at the time of decision, it will be known after the event is something we should keep in mind. And yet, like Ram said, we would need to decide, and we're going to cover some of those aspects as we move forward and what is it that we need to do. Now what is the purpose of education and learning? Anybody here? Somebody wants to raise their hand and share their thoughts with us. What is the purpose of education and learning?
Nobody.
Anyone raising hand? Saurav? Sampath Balaji. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sampath.
Good evening, Mr. Krishnan, Jairaj, Balaji here. Good evening, all the audience also. Education gives you some amount of domain expertise and a bit of subject knowledge, whether it is teaching or technology or anything else. And learning is vast. Learning, you can learn from teachers, you learn from PAs, and you learn from your friends, etc., and learn from superiors also. By learning from others, you can't live 200 years to learn everything and then implement. So by learning others, you can avoid the mistakes which others have sort of done. So like if you take, for example, Singapore, they learn from other countries' mistakes and then implement the right steps in their own, when they implement a lot of plans for their country. So learning that way helps a lot. Education is you get into the domain expertise, and then that helps you for living, and later like what you do, sharing for others. That's my simple understanding of education. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And anybody else who wishes to answer, we don't need to really split between education and learning. You can combine it in a normal manner, we understand. But what is its purpose? Thank you very much. You had some very interesting aspects that you covered, that it provides the expertise. Yeah, Shankar?
Go ahead, Shankar.
May I share my view, sir? This is Magesh.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I think the
Can you unmute him?
yeah, okay. I think the main purpose of education and learning is meet your personal objectives, personal goals.
Okay.
Because that is what is the main thing. If you are learning without a purpose, then maybe you will learn things, but they might not help you achieve your main goals.
Okay, thank you, Shankar. Anybody else who has any input? Yours is with respect to achieving goals.
So there's one Mr. Magesh. I've unmuted him. Mr. Mahesh.
Yes, please.
Yes, in education, we have the school education, which gives us knowledge to pursue a vocation and earn for ourselves. And then there is what we call as, the principles of holistic living or ethical living. So, character formation, how to live in a society. This is life education. We are forever learning right from the young age, from our parents and school and college. And as we enter the university of life after marriage, it is we are continuously learning how to live the right way, in harmony with our family, in harmony with our community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mahesh. Very interesting. It reminds me of Mark Twain's quote, which I had put down in the promo, which was sent out. And Mark Twain said, "Hey, when I was young, they sent me to school, but I never let that interfere with my education." Okay, good. But I'm going to summarize purpose of education and learning as this: to provide us answers, to know what to do in any situation, to gain expertise and competence through practice, whether we are engineers, doctors, lawyers, managers, professionals. All education and learning provides us answers, equips us to know what to do in any situation. I'm a surgeon, I'm doing cataract. I know what to do. And I know what to do multiple types of cataracts, multiple aspects. Through practice, I am ready to find the answer. I already know the answer. And this is so whether we are managers, we are professionals, we are doctors. So purpose of education and learning provides us answers, whether it's in our professional field or in different other fields, equips us to know what to do in any particular situation. Now let's move this to the same thing, purpose of education and learning in life. Now what do you think? Anybody? Anybody who's raising their hand other than those who have shared some thoughts already? Somebody other than, anybody new who'd like to take a shot at?
So there's Mr.
Hi.
Amir.
Amanikandan, Amaya is my company's name. See, I feel purpose of education and learning is to make your life, live your life easily and comfortably. That should be the only purpose why we should learn or educate ourselves.
Very nice, Manikandan. Lead your life easily. And you said next is purposefully, is it? Comfortably. Okay, nice. Anybody else who has any other view on what is this suddenly? Purpose of education and learning in school, college, and other professional thing was very clear, because all that equips us to get us the answers, expertise, everything needed for us to perform in those particular jobs, professions, or the areas that come under us. But here, anybody else who has an input for us? Okay, otherwise we move. So in life, we are continuously taking that parallel that the ABCDs are what we learned in formal education. The ABCDs are to prepare us to get some answers and know what to do in that particular field of our choice. Similarly, in life, we did see in question 3 and 4 that life keeps throwing questions at us. When in profession and in other things, these questions come to us, we are much better prepared because the ABCDs that we have learned have given us enough knowledge, and through practice, we then know what to do. So when those questions are thrown to us in the professional side of what we do, much easier for us to handle. But when life is throwing these questions, like Ram and I said, out of syllabus, unexpected, and it comes our way, we don't have the answers. And therefore, the purpose of education and learning in life too must be to say, we should have the answers. Purpose is similar. And so we want to say, what is it that it should lead to is, I should know what to do in the different roles that I play in life. So son, daughter, brother, sister, etc., student, teacher, spouse, parent, employer, employee, friend. These are the roles that each one of us will play in life. In the role that I play, and in a different situation, especially the negative, unfavorable, unpleasant, and unexpected. Suddenly, COVID has come, my business is floundering. My daughter has said something. Somebody falls sick. Different aspects, especially those of this unexpected, unpleasant, negative, or unfavorable, is the situation where we're not all that sure what we should do. So the learnings that we have should prepare us, should move us towards answers that we can find in the roles that we play and in the situations that we find ourselves in. Ram?
So the first expertise that was in the previous slide is all about making a living. How to make good money, how to have name, fame, all the important things. Nothing unimportant about it. But that's what our education is all about. How to make a good living. And comfortable, as somebody said, how to be comfortable in life. But then when a challenge like this comes, aimed like my daughter is going somewhere, where are we learning these things? Somebody said holistic learning. Not that I know of in my engineering college did they teach me what I should do if something like that happened. What should I do if my employer was hysterical and shouted at me morning through night? No clue how to handle. How do I know how to handle a relationship with my brother? Where do I learn this? So that is the question. While many of us have lived life for some time, the question still is there somewhere that we are learning this, and how can we learn this, and how can we pick it up? Not about just about making a living, but enjoying living life. How do we enjoy living life? How do we take the right decisions? How do we keep being cheerful, irrespective of all these challenges? These will come and go every day. Yet be cheerful, yet be happy, spread joy. Where do we learn that? That, I think, is where to become an expert, is the question really.
Thanks, Ram. Saurav, somebody had raised their hands. I think Arun or somebody.
Arun, I think.
Yeah, somebody wanted to give us an input, or Arun?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for an opportunity to talk to the group and yourself. Sir, when we mean by education, we have a structured methodology of education from our kindergarten till our post-graduation is completed. So this is a very structured education, which may more impart the knowledge. On the other side, the points you were talking about is more related to the life skills, where we don't have a structured methodology and people are learning with great difficulties. So I agree with you. So I'm also a little now confused now what exactly we mean by the education here. Are we talking about the academic education, or are we talking about the life skill specific education where we don't have any curriculum, where now everybody is now struggle to learn the certain things by themselves? It may be related to critical thinking or creative thinking or social intelligence and others.
Sure.
Yes, Arun, we are referring to what is that learning which helps us in life.
And where to get it. And that's what we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Yes.
JK?
Yeah. So what is the right answer? That is what we deliberately use, tick the correct answer in both those questions which involve life. And there's a lovely one-liner that I read, that in the examination of life, we cannot copy from anyone else because each one has a different question paper, which is so true. What is valid for me is not valid for you, even in that same situation, or different situations that some questions come to me those questions don't come to you. So when we look at in life, number one, we should have the readiness to choose from among the options. We should have the readiness to face wrong or incorrect answers, and no discomfort with not having the right answer at that particular time. This readiness itself is part of the learning, part of the preparation that we need to do. Ram?
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
So, for some of you who said, what is it? What should I learn? The thing we need to learn is, let's go back to those two situations. In both those situations, each one of us had different answers. Sometimes it's like Ram said, it's a little easier because it's a classroom exercise. But when you're actually in that situation, it's far more stressful, filled with emotion, charged with so many other thoughts and considerations, not at the easy. Though not easy, you still need to choose. So the learning and the grounding and the approaches will help us to move towards readiness to choose, knowing, I'm repeating this many times, knowing that there is no right answer. Like Ram said, no absolute right answer. Knowing there is no absolute right answer, yet my readiness to choose, my readiness to face, and face it with elegance, with grace, if it doesn't work out. Or if it works out, be happy that it worked out. And if I don't know, no discomfort, take help, talk to people, talk to somebody who can give you a better perspective. But all these are part of the learning that we want us to be prepared. And it is this learning that we are referring to as beyond ABCD. The ABCD is what we learn in school and college. The ABCD, like Ram said, helps us towards the profession, towards making a living. It's all towards that. But the beyond ABCD is the learning that we need to have for life. And some of these are important as we move forward.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Ram.
Before this. Sorry.
Yeah.
So two things I thought, as JK said, you know, my question paper is very different from what my father's question paper was. If my father told me no, it was no. If I now use that same question paper and answer and say no, even my granddaughter won't listen. Forget about my son. So how do you change and be prepared? The second is, we've all lived 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and we think we have lived life all right. So what at this stage do I need to learn anything at all? Why should I learn now? I've lived life. So far it's okay. I'm comfortable. So what's there? So some indications. When I walk in home and my spouse smiles, I'm happy. She frowns, I'm unhappy. Is that how it is? My business goes up. Wow, I'm damn happy. But all businesses don't stay up all the time. It goes down. Then I'm very unhappy. So this yo-yo, based on somebody smiling or business and how to cope with these daily challenges that we face and find how to choose and what to do, is what I think we'll try and focus in thinking through what are the possible areas to learn from. Back to you, JK.
Yep. Thanks, Ram. So what should children learn at school? I'm going to go through this for want of time. Otherwise, we would have had some interactive questions here. So there are two approaches. What should children learn at school? One group would say, go with established curriculum. Because they know best. They have done it for years. Everybody goes through it. Therefore, it's the best for my child too. Arun Kumar, you have some input for us? Saurav, can you check? Arun?
Yeah, Arun, please talk.
Okay.
Sir, thank you very much. It was unmute actually. So if you ask me, sir, in my experience, we would have graduated with a structured curriculum for 15 years, 16 years. End of the day, within 5 years of our curriculum, we are changing the stream what we have studied. Somebody might have not studied chemical engineering. End of the day, he would have become a trader. So it is not the academic curriculum. Beyond that, something the students they need to learn, which will help them to survive. And I'm using the word survive because of the technological advances, as well as they need to make some money, live a happy life. So this is my answer, sir. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So when we look at what should children learn at school, go with established curriculum because it's worked and it's worked for many. If you had a choice, what if you could specify? Ram, you wanted to share some examples here.
What should your child learn? So the usual, I heard saying survive, and we've been talking about how to make and establish, how do you choose? So I was just watching a parent move child from an established curriculum. You can't even get into that school. Actually fall at many feet to get admission, I was told. And from there, they're moving them to another school. Reason, want to equip their child to just learn to think for themselves. Education comes from a Latin term, which means to draw out. Edu and Kate, it means to draw out. Most of our schools shove it in. So they just shove it in. You go, you mug it up, and the better you've mugged up and repeated, the greater your marks. If there is even a little bit of originality somewhere, you've used green instead of yellow in the textbook, and in your answer, that's it, mark is cut. So we have now in an established curriculum, finding that we are thrusting down. How do we get children to start thinking for themselves? And there is a balance, because many a time we are saying if the child comes out of an established curriculum, hopefully we'll get into an IIT or something like that. And then where will the child learn these skills of life? And how do you get them to think for themselves, have a point of view? I remember somebody who said, am I the teacher or you're the teacher, when some child asked a question? Am I the teacher? You're the teacher. That kid never spoke for the next 4 or 5 years in school. So we discourage independent view. We discourage anything that is different from the routine. And even if the teacher tries to innovate, the parent will come in and say, hey, syllabus, keep to the syllabus, don't go outside. So we need to think. We as parents need to think, what should my child learn and how will he or she learn? Okay.
Thanks, Ram. So I remember one more of Mark Twain's statement. Education is what remains when you've forgotten everything that they taught you at school. So that prepares you. So the next is, so what should you learn? Towards what objective? And like Ram said, it's towards an objective that is beyond marks to be scored in a subject. Let's look at it that way, then it covers everything else. It is beyond marks that need to be scored in a subject. It is towards that objective that education is preparing children as far as school is concerned. Now let's look at, therefore, what should we learn in life? And I'm going to run through it quickly. What have we learned so far? Very little. Very little like all of us have already experienced, whatever we learned so far, much more in the ABCDs, which means much more towards preparing us for a profession, preparing us to make a living, but very little that we have learned. And like some of you said, there is no structured input for this. There is no syllabus. Where is the syllabus to say, please learn the following and then you're prepared for life? There is no syllabus. There is no curriculum. There is no structure. Each one of us picking up some few things. Many of us not picking up anything at all. So what have we learned so far? In the realm of beyond ABCD, very little. What should we learn? And we covered those. I'm just summarizing. We covered those when we said all education and learning is towards providing answers. And we said, hey, what is it should we learn? How do we get and know what is the most appropriate thing to do in different situations, in different relationships, and how do we get there? So what we should learn are the methods, the processes, the way in which I should look at things, what helps me to make a decision or take that action, or the manner in which I interact. So we are going to cover all this, and in the Indic way, we continuously refer to these as the muscles. These are the Indic muscles, and some we have covered in the earlier session. And as we go through, we will again and again re-emphasize that these muscles, these are the grounding. These are always will stand us in stead, and it'll stand us in good stead to move towards something. So what should we learn? We should learn all those which will help us to get the most appropriate answers in the most difficult or good in different roles and things that we do. This is towards that objective and purpose. We have covered what the ABCDs are and what are beyond. Some we are going to see in this session, many more we are going to see in subsequent sessions that we have. Now we all have the power to learn. We all have the power to learn, and to a large extent, some of this is in the forefront when it is established structured curriculum, which we go through in school or college, or we continue to learn on our jobs in our professional and organizations and different things. And it is all job related. It is all performance on the job. We all have that power to learn. But I'm going to cover some aspects which are interesting, that in the way our Indic literature and in the way our own understanding is, we have covered this in earlier sessions, but there are three gunas called sattva, rajas, and tamas, which is part of each one of us. And each one of that is important. It's not that one guna is superior or inferior or anything. Each one has a characteristic. And each of those has a role to play in how we learn. For example, tamas and that aspect in us is very good for repetitive learning. We don't get bored learning that. Repetitive learning, when we learned the multiplication tables and we learned it by rote, or we learned some other thing, learned some poem by heart, did something else, all repetitive learning, the tamasic nature in us helps us towards repetitive nature learning. The rajasic nature helps towards new ideas, different ways of looking at things. The rajasic nature makes us question. The rajasic nature creates more inquisitive nature in us, and that helps us again in our learning and in what we do. And therefore, the sattvic learning and knowledge, that leads to understanding. And we're going to cover that subsequently. There is a difference between learning and understanding. Understanding is then when I completely then know the subject. It is not because it's a subject which was taught to me, but I know what its interpretation is. So in that right angle triangle, if some of us were able to quickly solve and say the third angle is this much, there was an understanding of the principles of the right angle. And therefore, it is with that understanding that we were able to solve a problem. So understanding is important, and the sattvic nature in us gives us that understanding. There's another very interesting thing which I read. I'm only going to share it very briefly, saying there's another process, the Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana process, which is very important, that we learn by Shravana, which is listening, and then by Kirtana, which is repeating, then Smarana, which is internally looking at it, meditating upon it, and then understanding. So there is another process. I'm not expanding it now for want of time, but these are processes well established, very much practiced during the Gurukula days and in the Guru Shishya interactions. These things were brought to fore, these things were developed in each person, which led both to learning and to understanding. So we have the power to learn. There's a lovely thing which I'll share, which the Sanskrit thing goes like this. Acharyat padam adatte, padam sishyaha swamedaya, padam sab brahmacharyabhya, padam kalakramenacha. What it means is acharyat, from the guru. Padam means 1/4 or one leg. I acquire 1/4 of the knowledge from the acharya, from the guru. Padam sishyaha swamedaya. Meda is intelligence. Swameda is my own intelligence. 1/4 I need to acquire by thinking about it from my own intelligence. So the acharya has seeded some thought. I have to think about it and acquire 1/4 the knowledge. Padam sab brahmacharibhya. By discussion and debate and co-students, I will learn 1/4. Padam kalakramenacha. Through the experience of time and passage of time, I will learn 1/4. So in everything, there is an aspect where our internal thinking and discussions gets us a greater understanding, including what we need to learn for life. Learning versus understanding, I've already shared that with you. Let's just cover, therefore, why should we learn? Ram, back to you.
First of all, most of us don't learn because we know. We know, we have lived life so long, we know. Therefore, we stop learning. I think it was Alvin Toffler, the guy who wrote Future Shock and many things, who said that the illiterate of the 21st century is not somebody who doesn't know how to read or write, but it is somebody who will not be able to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And because of that attitude of unlearning and relearning, of a lack of that attitude, most of us stop learning. I know. And therefore, the biggest block to us learning is ourselves, because I have lived life. I'm okay. And like I said, business goes up, I'm up. Business goes down, I'm down. I'm happy one day because of something. I'm very unhappy the next day. All factors outside our control moves us around. As JK has said in the previous sessions, who's holding the remote to our happiness? And a lot of it is to do with our not learning, with our attitude to want to learn. So I think we have to first overcome the fact that we want to learn and that we don't know enough and we are open to learn. We have to overcome this. I know everything. Back to you, JK.
Ram, I think you wanted to share that story of the woodcutter.
I thought you wanted me to do it a little later, but sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
You want to do it in that next, when we move along. Okay. And therefore the willingness to learn. So we have the power to learn. We must be clear why we should learn, because we have to get equipped and we are not yet there. And if you have the willingness to learn, there are already aspects in what we have covered in this session. And I will summarize it in the last. There is some very important learning which has already happened in the contents of this session, and I will cover it in the summary. Every teacher was a student. Every winner was a loser. Every expert once was a beginner. But all of them have crossed the bridge called learning. So there is no doubt that even in the aspects of what we are referring to as beyond ABCD, preparing us for life, there is learning, and we are open to that. We're going to get what we require. So let's look at learning for life via external sources and internal sources. We've covered this. So even in what I shared with you in the earlier one as Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Shravana, all of us will get inputs even in these areas which we are referring to as beyond ABCD from external sources. Ram and I have had the benefit of listening to very eminent teachers, philosophers, and people who have, through the wealth of knowledge and experience that they had, were able to highlight certain important things, but that led us then to start thinking about it. Therefore, there were external sources, and then we had to say, hey, what is it? Suddenly something is important. I need to know something more. There is something else needed. So therefore, there is thinking about it. There are internal sources. So learning has a combination, both external sources and to very large extent, internal. Next, I would say is via observation. By looking at what is happening around us. People who can be an example. I want to share with you one little story. I think we still have about 10, 12, 15 minutes. Okay, one. So there was this man, while walking through a forest, he saw a fox which had lost 2 of its legs. And so it was just lying under a tree, and he was thinking, hey, how is this fox going to survive? And as he was watching, there was a tiger which came with an animal that it had killed in its mouth, came near the fox. It ate whatever it required and left the remaining meat for the fox. The man was really surprised. He went there again the next day, and to his amazement, the next day too, the same thing happened. The tiger came with the game in its mouth, ate its fill, and left the rest for the fox to eat. And he said, I'm amazed at the kindness of the Lord and how the Lord takes care of everybody. I'm going to go sit in a corner, and I'm very sure that the Lord will provide for me. So he goes back to town, sits under a tree. Few days go, nothing happens. Nobody has given him anything. He is near death, starving, and he cries out, my Lord, what is it? You're not taking care of me. And the Lord replies, you stupid fool, you are in complete error. Stop following the example of the disabled fox and start following the example of the tiger. So in every situation, I can decide to follow the fox, or I can decide to follow the tiger. So via observation, one more example, but for want of time, I will skip that. But as we look around us, in every situation, in everything that somebody is doing or somebody is not doing, just via observation, there are things that we can learn for life, and we can start to move towards it. There's another lovely one. Ram sent this to me. Look at that. 2 convicts. One is able to see only the bars in the window. The other one has gone beyond the bars, and he's able to see the scenery outside. So the art of knowing is knowing what to ignore, what to take. What you pick up from that situation. Do you pick up the bars? Or do you pick up the scenery? Ram?
Next.
Okay. Then via introspection. So you think about it. Anything, inputs are going to come. You have to think about it. Then take from it what is relevant. Then only the understanding happens. This is very important. In all the Guru Sishya Parampara and in all earlier things, no guru would teach you anything. Actually, it's only in our school curriculum where we think teacher must teach. Teacher need not teach. Teacher must make the student learn. There is a big difference between a teacher teaching and a teacher enabling a student to learn. And this happens only via questioning in the Guru Sishya Parampara. No Guru will say, okay, today 9 o'clock class starts. No, nothing. Unless the student comes with a question, he or she is not going to get any input from the Guru. And even when there is a question, the Guru is going to come back to you and say, what do you think is the right answer? Or what do you think is the answer? No answer will be given just because you asked a question. It's going to come back to you. It's like tennis where the ball is put back in your court. Okay, what do you think is the answer? Go think about it. Then you come back and say, I think this is what it is. Then also he doesn't give you an answer. He says, okay, what do your friends think? Have you discussed this with your other students? Suddenly all students discuss, saying, I thought this, you thought that. Yeah, that. Collectively they go to the Guru. This is what multiple views are. Okay, now the Guru gives an input that in what your question was and in the answers that you have come up with, you have covered these, but there are certain aspects that you have not covered, which are this and this. Please go think about it and come back and say what that could be. So the whole process of learning is not by teaching. It is through questioning, coming up with something, discussions, and then getting it confirmed. So via questioning, via hypothesis, via discussion and debate, I'll stop here and Ram, leave it for you.
So I was saying that one is an attitude to wanting to learn. The second reason for most of us is we are too busy. We are so busy making a living that we have no time to learn how to live. So there is the story of two woodcutters. The two woodcutters, good friends, see this lovely forest and they say, wow, this is great. We can make a fantastic living here. So on the first day, both of them cut the same number of trees. They're very happy. The second day, one of them is there on time and he starts cutting. He doesn't see the second fellow who comes in a little late and he starts cutting. And as days goes by, the second fellow is always coming 15, 20 minutes, maybe half an hour, 1 hour late. But he's cutting far more trees. The first fellow is working hard and harder and harder and cutting fewer and fewer trees. He is working long hours. He is working forever, according to him, while the other fellow is coming late and yet he is cutting so many more trees. So he goes up to him and he says, what's happening? What are you doing? And he says, what do you do? Why are you late? He says, before starting my day, I sharpen the axe. My axe, I sharpen and then I come to work. And the first fellow says, I'm too busy to sharpen my axe. I'm really too busy. I have to cut far more trees. Otherwise, I'm not going to be comfortable in life. So I have to go and start cutting trees. I have no time to sharpen the axe. So that is the attitude most of us have. We are so busy that we don't sharpen any of the skills that we need to actually lead a happy life. And we need to take stock. And how do we take stock of how are we progressing in life in these skills? Are we more cheerful? Do we bring joy when we are coming into a room, or we bring great joy when we leave a room to the other? So what is it that we do? We can assess ourselves by observing our own behavior, our own reaction to happiness, to satisfaction, to being cheerful, to being joyous. And just that assessment of how we are will tell us whether we are following any one of this long list to learn. And and a wanting to learn so that we sharpen the axe before we start living life every day. JK?
Thanks, Ram. That was a nice story, really. And via practice. I have this lovely one-liner. It says, I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. So it's only through practice. Through practice, via evaluation and looking at what it is. And like Ram says, therefore you're sharpening the axe and you're becoming better. Most important via unlearning and relearning. And Ram, you wanted to share the COVID example here as what you need to do to unlearn and relearn.
You know, when we face this challenge, we were looking at what can we do to help. And many a time, I've seen people not even willing to accept that there is a problem. So when the COVID situation goes away, when the lockdown is lifted on the 15th, I will, or on the 1st of July, I will travel, I will go here, I will go there. So for many of us, we have first is a state of denial of a situation around us. So we have to overcome that denial, first of all, to even start observing what is it that we ought to be doing here? What are the challenges around us? Only then are we starting to even open our mind to what is next? What can we do next? JK has said in the earlier examples, the right attitude is what next? But for most of us, we won't even get to what next if we are denying that there is a question of having to re-examine where we are and what we ought to be doing. So many times I've just seen people in a denial mode, which prevents learning, and then only there's an unlearning to happen for relearning. Back to you, JK.
Thanks, Ram. So if I summarize, we looked at the ABCDs. We know beyond ABCD, by looking at those two questions, which were from school and other curriculum, questions which were outside of the curriculum. We analyzed what is the right answer, what should we be learning, the power of learning and learning for life. And I said we'll summarize some things we have learned here in this session. One of the most important things we have learned in this session is that there is no right answer. That life will throw questions from outside the syllabus. And therefore our preparedness and our readiness to answer those questions, we must examine then, hey, what is that learning that I require? And this learning is not subject matter learning. This learning is not available in school. This learning is the muscles that I need to build, because that is what will help me, which means even in this session, we are very clear, there is no right answer, yet I need to take a decision, and that I should face the consequences. It is right or wrong will be proved only after the event, and therefore, how do I then start to look at it in the different roles we play? And we went through therefore the examples that for learning for life, so many other aspects and ways to get it. And in subsequent sessions, we are going to cover very specific muscles which can help us in different situations and in different relationships. And we are now open to questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Saurabh Jawahar.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. So very nice session. So a lot of insights. So my question is, to see a lot of decisions in life, right? Some of them, like, are very irreversible, especially for businessmen, right? So when they decide to go and invest, big time, even after taking all the data into account, all the failure modes into account, and things like COVID happen, and it completely tilts the balance to the failure side, right? My question is, how do you handle, that state of mind, even though you took all the data into account, everything possible, the loss is like, humongous. It's not possible for a person to reverse the loss, and it has a telling effect on his family, his financial capacity to manage things from there on. I just want to get some insights from you, like, how do you handle those situations?
Ram?
Yep. So the first question is, when you make an investment, there is no guarantee that it will work. There is nothing that says, even when you put money in a bank nowadays, you don't know whether you're going to get it back itself. So there is no guarantee that when you invest in a business that it will work. You are expecting that it will work, but you have to be prepared that it may not work. So that is how we talk of plan A, plan B. When you make an investment, you assume that things will be okay. But that is not true. We have seen it ourselves, COVID and so many things. We've seen it in the last 10, 15 years. We have seen so many challenges environmentally, economically, and now to the health and everything, that we know that there is no guarantee in any decision. That is why we said there is no right answer, and the right answer will evolve over time. So let us assume that a significant shock to your financial well-being has happened. If you were prepared for it, meaning not expecting it, that's a pessimistic approach to life. But if you're prepared for it, knowing all businesses, something or the other, you will start looking at, therefore, what next? Maybe, first is it's a huge hit to your ego. I took a decision with all data I thought, and something went wrong. Look at what I've done. I let my family down. So many things. So first is a huge hit to the ego. But if you are able to take all that and just think of what next, I'm not saying you don't feel bad. All that happens, all those emotions. But quickly come back to what next. It may be you put your ego in a safe deposit box for some time and take up a job so that it'll clear all the debts that you've got or whatever it is. But you work your way back. There are so many stories that we hear of people like Velu and others who have gone through repeated cycles of all this. So there are role models we can look at. But from our point of view, what next? So first is there's no guarantee. And as long as you know there is no guarantee, you expect a win or a shock. You prepare yourself for it. And then what next? If the worst happens, what next? And to be maintaining equanimity, and that is the lesson. If you haven't prepared for any of this, when a shock happens, then, I am sorry to say, but somebody like Coffee Day, I feel very sad, but, it's just last year, stop of time for many of us. We don't know how to cope, and then you escape, or you think you've escaped. So, yeah.
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot.
Anything? I think it's time, JK.
All right, Saurav, it's 7. So thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Yes, sir. So on behalf of TiE Chennai, I would like to thank you again, sir, for this wonderful session. Participants, thank you for all your support. Thank you for logging in on time and being with us. So we're already receiving fantastic feedback. So thank you for that. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.